Alex Paul, editor-at-large for Electronic Design. And today we're going to talk about cryptography, specifically cybersecurity and quantum cryptography with Skip Sanzeri. He's the founder and CRO and COO of QSecure. Welcome to the show, Skip. Security, all flavors of security. I mean, people have wanted to protect their stuff since time was time. Yet it's almost as if we realized that data wasn't that important until just recently.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. It snuck up on us, Alex. This is part of the problem. So, you think about it, even, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, before we even used the internet, what was data? It was interesting, right? None of it was digitized, or very little of it was digitized. Now, everything is digitized. And what we've done is we've traded convenience for privacy. So, for instance, when there's a way that you can conveniently and easily log onto something with or without a password, or with the same password for all your things, or you can use web browsers to log on. It's all a trade. And the unfortunate thing is going to get worse, because if you think of things like the metaverse now, and how we already have a giant digital footprint. In other words, everything that you and I do, that everyone does, there's a footprint. We have these things, right? These are, have a million tracking devices, and we trade convenience to use Waze for directions, or, you get it. But as we move forward, even moving into some of these other areas where even more of our preferences and choices and behaviors are all going to have a digital footprint. What that means is it's hacking and going after data and people's privacy is going to become more valuable, because there's going to be more information there. So it's kind of snuck up on us, and now people are sort of pushing back a little bit. But I have a feeling we're going to still make that trade convenience for privacy, and we still do it. So that's why companies like QSecure are in business, to help try to protect that.
Well, and it's kind of ubiquitous, isn't it? I mean, it's almost to the point where you could probably follow somebody who went off the grid by the hole they left behind in the data space. It's that layered now.
Yes, I mean, everything is tracked. And then you're right. If somebody goes off the grid, yeah, you'll be able to tell where they were last, and maybe even determine how far they could have gotten. But I mean, this is why criminals get caught these days, because you can't get money. You can't do anything without creating a digital signal. The moment that you turn your phone back on, the moment you go to the bank to get money, or do a charge, or check into a hotel, it's all digitized. So, it's something we just have to get used to, but we have to be zealots for privacy and security.
From the developer's point of view, right? A modern, intelligent, wireless device is multimodal, multispectral, multilingual. It's got often different communications protocols to go with the different bandwidths that it's talking on. That's got to present a significant security risk and challenge for the developer, right? Absolutely.
The hard part about developing is you're trying to develop a product, and it could be software, it could be firmware, it could be hardware. A lot of times security isn't the first thing in mind. The first thing is a product that works, right? Product efficacy, and things like pricing, where you want to be able to sell it at a price that people are willing to afford it. And then security in many cases gets the back seat, because it stands in the way. When you think about being compliant with some of the security requirements, those stand in the way of progress. Now, arguably, those are a very important part of progress. However, in best practice, in normal practices, they're not really as prevalent as they should be. Now, best practices are you go down both paths and you invest in security into that product. You're hitting your compliance, and at the same time, you're producing a great product. But we see it all the time where products come out that are not that secure, or security was an afterthought. You have a lot of products manufactured in other countries, and we don't know the derivation of those chips, or that firmware, or those devices, those sensors, that IoT. We don't know, and we haven't, in many cases, those aren't tested for derivation, and there could be backdoors for data. There could be a lot of issues with those. And the thing is, things are moving so fast here, Alex. It's really difficult to make sure that, again, we have the privacy and security we need.
Well, I mean, that's even being recognized now on a regulatory level. Isn't the government, at least in America, trying to do something about that with NIST?
They are. So they have been upgrading the security standards now for a while, and NIST has moved into what we call the post-quantum era, which is now security that's developed around protecting against quantum computing attacks. We can get into that in a second. But they are trying. The problem is it just takes a lot of time. And then even once you declare, let's say, a new set of algorithms, then all of that cryptography has to get changed out across the world. Because, we all standardized on the internet. By standardizing on the internet, that's where we all said, okay, guess what? Data is going to be available to any system anywhere. Now, you put cryptography on the data so that if somebody does crack in and they get it, hopefully your cryptography holds so they can't unwind that data. They don't know what it is. However, the internet is the great mitigator because data travels everywhere. There's some recent books, I'll send you a book later, but called The Wires of War, which talks about how, our data, when you send data, this call itself that we're on right now, this Zoom call, could be routed across fiber all over the world. Could be going through China right now. We don't know. Nobody really knows the full routing of data. So it's a really interesting time where it's an open pipe out there in the internet, which means that anyone can listen and anyone can grab data. They could store that data. They may not be able to decrypt it, but they certainly have it for later.
Well, I mean, Skip, that's kind of the irony, isn't it? Because the internet was originally the ARPANET, which was a military cyber weapon. Its purpose was to ensure data transfer no matter what the circumstances, as long as any fragment of the network was intact.
It was, but Alex, things have changed. I mean, once the consumers got a hold of it, I mean, we wanted that convenience of being able to look at anything and do anything on the internet with anybody. I mean, you can't stop humans from communicating, and it turned into a giant communications mechanism. And then, of course, now we have applications that anything you want to do. But again, there's a price because that's all going over what I call open pipes. I don't mean open in the sense that they're just left hung out, but if you think about it, these are going over areas where people can be listening all the time and trying to decrypt your data.